A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
In every human conflict, there are always human casualties, and sadly, many of these casualties are not directly involved in the conflict. Well, the same is true in Gaza right now. As the Israelis battle to defend their borders, innocent civilians are dying on both sides of this conflict. And Daniel Go from Samaritans Purse joins me now to discuss the evacuation of 200 Christians out of Gaza. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate your time on the show today.
As I said, Daniel, it's a sad reality of humankind that really since Cain killed his brother Abel, conflict has been a part of the human reality, and today is no different, is it?
No, very much so. And I think especially in the Middle East, it's been going for a very, very long time, much longer than our sort of Western memory sort of commits to. And it's an unfortunate fact that we have to read and see and know all about it.
Yeah, but I mean, the one positive, as I quoted in the introduction, is that 200 Gazan Christians have been granted visitor visas to resettle in Australia. To your knowledge, have these people already settled here, or they're in that process?
My understanding is that they're in the process. Australia actually, for all things considered, Australia has been quite a prominent how would you say it, player in welcoming people seeking refuge. Many countries, specifically around Israel, Gaza, in the surrounding areas, are not providing legal documentation for people seeking refuge outside of Gaza. And all credit to the Australian government. They've permitted a number of visitor visas for people from Gaza.
Yeah, it has been an interesting phenomenon, hasn't it, that many of the neighbouring countries around Palestine who would officially claim to, support the Palestinians and their causes are not opening up their borders to welcome Palestinian refugees into their nations, are they?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what are their reasons or the specifics as to why, but I think it says a lot about Australia and policies that they've put in place and our foreign relations there to be able to make way for both Muslim and Christian Gazans trying to escape war. Yeah,
and I mean, obviously, any war is a bad war, especially for civilians. And the numbers quoted by the Palestinian Health Authority, which we do have to question because they're run by Hamas, they're claiming that 40,000 civilians have been killed in Gaza. But when you drill into those statistics, Hamas are not making any differentiation between combatants or militants and civilians. So it's very difficult to know, A, how many people actually have been killed, and B, how many of these people are civilians and are combatants. But it would be fair to say that in every war, mistakes happen, and as much as the Israelis appear to be trying not to involve civilians are dying in this conflict, and even one death is a tragedy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not something you ever want to sort of wake up to read about in the news or hear about. Unfortunately, yeah, you're right. Like you mentioned there, it is war, and there are specific people that both sides are targeting. And unfortunately, there are a lot of civilians in Gaza in such a small space. I think it's estimated to be about 2 million people in what looks like, I think it's like 120 square kilometers. So a lot of infrastructure has been destroyed. A lot of people are living in camps. A lot of people, especially in that northern district of Gaza, where Gaza City is, a lot of people there have been displaced. So casualties are very high.
Yeah, and it's also sad, isn't it, that Hamas has spent years obviously preparing for this war, and you look at the videos of the bunkers and the tunnel system they've built. It's so elaborate, like kilometres and kilometres of underground tunnels for their militants, but there seems to be no evidence of them building any shelters for civilians. It's like Hamas just had no regard for the civilian population of Gaza, who, in theory, they are the government of Gaza. They've been given billions of dollars in aid money, and it's such a tragedy that they did not prepare at all to protect the civilian population.
Yeah, I think that sentiment's been reflected by the people that we've met. Had the chance to meet with a family that Samaritans Purse has worked towards financially supporting, and they felt very much sort of just forsaken, I guess, by their administration there in Gaza. Obviously, Israel has its own aims and projects there, but also just within Gaza, the people there, and the general sentiment is that these people, their families, they've lost loved ones, they've just been caught in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, moving forward, we're all hoping and praying that at the end of this conflict that, for the people of Gaza and Palestine, that there will be some form of new government or leadership who actually will administer, because a lot of money gets donated to Gaza and to Palestine. It has done for a long time now. You just hope that some form of administration is set up to actually provide peace and safety and healthcare and education for that part of the world, so it actually can be rebuilt in a positive way.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think, it's unfortunate. It seems not that it's complex in that the nuts and bolts of it, but this conflict that Israel has with Hamas seems it's not a straightforward war. I think there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of intricacies there, and unfortunately, it's not one of those things that's just going to be solved diplomatically, by the end of the year or in the next weeks or months. I think it's a long-term sort of thing.
Yeah, so we need to pray. But let's talk about what Samaritans Purse are doing. So how are you assisting in the resettlement process of these 200 Gazan Christians?
Yeah, so we wanted to just be part of just a solution within Australia. We wanted to show Australian Christians that are from all different backgrounds, that we wanted to be proactive in assisting people coming into the country. So we've partnered with, we've provided funding to different partners that are working in Australia, that are receiving these people. 200, I think, is the total number that have been granted provisional or visitor visas. We know of, I think, half a dozen families at the moment that have entered the country and have received help in the form of rental assistance, food vouchers for food and essentials, and assistance with finding employment in Australia. So there's obviously a huge cost that goes into that, and we just wanted to be part of that solution in Australia, helping these people who have entered the country.
Yeah, and you said you've already spoken to a few of them. Was that face-to-face, Daniel, or was that just via Zoom or Teams or phone calls?
Yeah, we got to, we were able to go and meet them in person, just to understand a little bit about their story and how they left their home, how they left Gaza, and then I guess their challenges and their hopes and dreams as they enter Australia. So this one family that I met, the husband was a headmaster at a Christian school in Gaza, who accepted people from all faiths, and they had a great life. They had a very normal, as you can think of it, life in Gaza City, in the northern part of Gaza. Their kids attended the YMCA club. They went about. They could go out for dinner. They had just celebrated their wedding anniversary 2 days before the attack on October 7th. So we got to understand a little bit, just to scratch the surface of what their story had been like in the months since the attack, and since their lives there in Gaza changed forever. And it just gave us a first-hand sort of dose of reality of what it's like to be living in a country that's an active war, a country that is an active war zone, unfortunately.
Yeah, what really stood out to you, Daniel, talking to them and hearing their story?
They told me that they had spent 7 months sheltering in a church there. And then we found out later that Samaritans Purse International had been able to provide resources and food and water to this church. So that we didn't know this until we had spoken with our teams. But this family had sheltered there. They didn't want to go. They were given instructions to leave, but the road and that path down towards the southern border of Egypt, the Rafah border, it's only about 30, 40 kilometers max. But it's just from what they were telling me, it's just littered with unburied bodies. The infrastructure is just decimated. So they stayed in this church, and they had family that had been killed. They had family in other churches who had been killed. Just horrendous. Just the circumstances there. They said there were up to 600 families living in this church complex, and every day there was bombings, shrapnel, just these sort of things that we just don't, just completely foreign to us, to our sort of to our experience living here in Australia. So I just couldn't imagine what that was like. Yeah,
I would imagine that they've and they are experiencing what is now known as PTSD, and probably going to need a lot of assistance moving forward as well with counselling and support services. Is that part of what your funding is providing for?
Yeah, I think they in that regard, they've been connected with local churches there. Their children are going to have been granted admission to a local Christian school where they're receiving some services there. My hope and prayer is coming to Australia at a top level seems fantastic, dream come true. But these people, they are educated. They do speak English, but I mean, adjusting to a brand new country where maybe their qualifications and degrees won't be able to find the same sort of work that they had back home. Their children are possibly the only ones that look like them in school, so there's a lot of adjustment there. And same with the assistance that they've been provided. They, for example, the rental assistance is for 4 months. I think they arrived in September, so it's due to sort of, they're expected to be back on their feet by the end of the year to be able to keep keeping up with the living costs and that sort of thing that's associated with living in Australia.
It's not really long, is it? 4 months to resettle in a new country and learn a new culture and get a job. But we're just hoping and praying that they will get a lot of great support from local churches, and they're obviously getting a lot of support from Samaritans Purse. And it's so good, Daniel, to hear this story, how you as a Christian organisation are helping these families resettle into Australia and hopefully find a new life that involves a lot of peace and security and longevity for them and their families. But I want to thank you, Daniel Go. He is the marketing coordinator at Samaritans Purse for Australia and New Zealand. And Daniel, I want to thank you so much for joining us on 2020 Today.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.